tapping into the true potential of the human spirit. This is Humanity Empowered. This is the Implicit Show. Hello and welcome to the Implicit Show. I hope you guys are doing really good. I got a special guest in today for our third episode of the show. You know, we kind of restarted things, but we're getting on the roll. It's feeling good. And we got a special guest. Now his name's Brian, and I've known Brian, I think, for a few months now. And one of the things I know the most about Brian is he is super supportive of all the people around him. He's always, sending me messages, supporting me, asking questions, keeping in touch. And so super happy to get him on the show because he also does his own show called Success Profiles Radio. And this is a show where he interviews all sorts of different people in different areas of life and successful in different things. So I'm going to pass it right on to you, Brian. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Brian?
Oh, so good, man. So happy to have you on the show. I'm excited about the topic because the topic, I titled it, What Hundreds of Interviews Have Taught Me About Success. And I know you've done hundreds of interviews and you've heard basically what success means from so many different people. You've heard this. So I'm really curious to get into this. So maybe you could introduce a little bit about yourself, how you got on the show and go from there.
Sure. Well, my name is Brian Wright, and I grew up in a small town in Iowa. And went off to college after I was done, went to graduate school, got a master's degree in adult education. And in terms of my training in communication, I competed in speech tournaments throughout high school and college. And I also taught public speaking and English composition in college for several years. That was a really fun experience. And so a lot of people that took my classes they were all required to, so they didn't all want to be there. So it was my job to make it fun and interesting as much as I could. And so I hope that I did my job well enough that everyone agreed. I got good reviews on my evaluations, had some great speeches, had some great students who came up with some very creative things to talk about. And it's just been a really, really fun journey for me. One of the events that I competed in high school was radio news announcing. And that was always fun because basically what you do is you are given a half an hour with a bunch of stories, and your job is to figure out which ones are the most important. And you have 5 minutes to present your newscast. And so you sit in a room away from the judges. You're not facing anyone. The only person in the room with you is the person who gives you the flashcards and tells you how much time you have left. So that was the first time I ever did a speech tournament. And I was afraid. I didn't want to face an audience. I was a little hesitant to even go out. And the speech teacher said, well, there is an event where you don't have to face somebody if you feel better about that. I said, really? And I read up about it and I thought, okay, I'll do this. So it was really great. I mean, I did not come out of the womb wanting to be a public speaker or a motivational speaker or a radio host at all. I had to learn how to become decent at what I do. And when I was presented with an opportunity a little over 5 years ago to have a show, I thought about it for a little while and decided, why not? It seems to be something that, based on my past experience, would be a natural extension of the skills and experience that I had. And so I had my first episode, and I was a little on edge, that nervous energy, first episode, first time doing something brand new. Yeah. I scripted out my first 3 minutes, and then I brought on my guest and had a set of questions, and we just went to town, and it turned out all right. And I was immediately smitten with the idea of having my show. And so my 5-year anniversary is coming up this coming Monday.
Really?
So over 200 episodes. It's a once a week show. And I've had a chance to interview some really amazing people. Darren Hardy from Success Magazine was on my show. That was huge. It was not easy to get him either.
No, I could only imagine.
So I've had some really great people, and I've learned a lot of really fantastic lessons from a lot of them. And I'm sure you'll probably want us to talk about that today.
Yes, for sure. Well, that's one of the things I'd want to talk about is, what are some of the main lessons you've learned? But before we get into that, I'm curious about how your first episode, tell me a little bit more about it. Who was on the show? What did you learn? What was that experience like diving into something new like that?
Well, I was very intentional about who I wanted my first guest to be. I wanted to be someone who had done interviews before, someone who was used to being interviewed, someone who I knew would not be shy. And that person was Hal Elrod. He
Yeah.
is the creator of the book, The Miracle Morning. And Brian, you know who he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had him on the show before Miracle Morning was done. We were promoting his other book, Taking Life Head On. And he almost died in a car crash. He collided with a drunk driver at 70 miles an hour when he was in his early 20s, I believe. And he lived to tell about it. A very inspirational story. And Hal and I had met at a couple of seminars prior. And so I reached out to him and I said, look, Hal, this is my very first show. I would be honored if you'd be my first guest. And he said, yes. So I will be forever grateful to him for being my number one. And so he made it very easy for me to get through that show. And just the whole idea that he looked forward to life and was not going to let a near-death experience stop him. In fact, for him, he decided that the goals that he had in front of him were more important than the situation he was going through. And that's a great lesson for all of us, is when he was on his hospital bed and the doctors were telling him, we aren't sure if you're ever going to walk again. He said, well, my goals in life are much bigger than that. I want to write more books. I want to speak in front of audiences. I want to impact thousands, if not millions of people. And he's doing that. And he's thrived. And he was on my show a second time when the Miracle Morning book came out. So he's a guest that I would have back over and over and over again. Hal was terrific.
That is such a coincidence, man, because Hal and his book, The Miracle Morning, the whole thing was basically one of the books. He was one of the people who really propelled me into wanting to do some speaking myself and put on my own show and write my own books and all that. So I didn't know that about you. That's really cool. Hal's a great guy. That's really cool. So what'd you learn from that first episode?
I learned that this is something that I could do for a very long time. I learned that I could get amazing guests on my show who are willing to talk to me. And here's the whole thing. My show, I want people to promote their book, their event, some free giveaway to build their list. People who want to come on my show and don't have anything to give away, I tell them, very respectfully, having something to give away is evidence of your journey. This is a success-oriented show. And if you've got nothing to give to people or share with people, then you probably should create something first. I've been on shows where they don't want you to promote anything. It's all about them. It's all about their show. But for me, I'm the opposite of that. I want you to promote something to my audience. And so that, I think, has made it easier for me to get great guests on my show because everyone's promoting something. And here's another great lesson for those of you out there with a show who want to get great guests. Reach out to them when they have something to promote. That's the reason Darren Hardy came on my show. He was actively promoting his book, Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. And he had some shows that he was on where the guests weren't really letting him talk about his book. And so his people decided to stop all of his interviews, and basically they revetted everyone that they had previously committed to. So I had to basically apply a second time to interview him. And I was thinking to myself, no. I'm almost done preparing this guy's show. I'm not losing this opportunity. And so I offered to send a list of the questions I planned on asking, and they were fine with that. And they said, okay, great, you can interview Darren. Thank you.
Yeah.
So sometimes, to get the big guns, you have to jump through their hoops. That's just how it is. And so you play the game their way, and they'll come play in your sandbox. And if you do a really great job, they might come again to play in your sandbox. Bob Burg has been on my show twice. James Malinchak from Secret Millionaire has been on my show 3 times. He is right now the most tenured person on my show. He's the only person who's been on 3 times. Brandon Adams, who is a crowdfunding expert, young crowdfunding expert, really, really fantastic guy. He's going to come onto my show for the 3rd time, probably in the next month or 2. He and his business partner, Greg Roulette, recently completed filming their reality show, Ambitious Adventures, where they went around to different cities in the country interviewing young entrepreneurs who are making a huge difference in their community. And that's going to be broadcast on Apple TV and outlets like that, with hopes of maybe getting a bigger distribution deal for their 2nd season. So Brandon Adams is amazing. Gosh, who else have I had? Jack Canfield, Laurel Langmeyer, Sharon Lecter, Dr. John Demartini from The Secret, former UFC champion Rich Franklin has been on my show. I'm going to have an Olympic athlete, Jonathan Horton, on my show here in February. I'm so excited. That's going to be a really, really great episode, by the way.
Wow, that's amazing, man. So almost 200 episodes of this show. Um, you've interviewed so many
Yeah.
people. This might be a tough question, but who do you think, like, what was your favorite interview, or at least one of your favorite moments on your show?
Wow. That is so hard to answer. I'll
I,
tell you what,
I thought so.
the 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 most well-known people, if they give me the vibe that they're having a really great time, I ask them to do testimonials for me. And so if you were ever to go on my website, briankwright.com, and look at the testimonials page, what I do sometimes when I'm feeling a little down, this isn't vanity at all, but it's more of a pick me up. I go back and listen to all the great testimonials people did for my show, and it picks me up immediately. Hearing someone like Jeffrey Gitomer, for example, tell me that I made him think during the show, that's a huge compliment. To hear someone like Jack Canfield say that, you know what, this is a show you can't miss. He's interviewed a bunch of my friends. Be sure to tune in. Uh, it's just really amazing. Having Darren Hardy on my show was a huge highlight. He was charming, he was fun, and it's just really great. These people all put their pants on the same way that we do. They're people just like we are. They have goals and visions like we do, and they want and need help getting their message out. So to anyone who thinks that some of these people are unattainable, that is absolutely not true. Having a podcast, having a radio show is the best way to meet your mentors.
Yeah, that's huge, man. That's huge. And that's why I'm doing this show, so I can meet some of my mentors.
There you go.
So, real quick, let's talk a little bit about some of the biggest lessons you've learned, like overall through the whole thing, and maybe how some of our listeners can apply that as well. Like you said, these people aren't unattainable. You can go and interview some of your mentors and get a hold of the people who have influenced you. So, tell us a little bit more.
Well, I compiled several years ago a top 10 list of the things that I had learned from people on my show in the first maybe year or two. And some of those lessons still hold true because the principles of success really don't change. The circumstances and the stories that help people learn those lessons certainly are different from person to person. I would say people who think that success is an overnight thing, they're absolutely wrong about that. You see, for example, the successes that Gary Vaynerchuk have had, people that Darren Hardy have had, people like Tony Robbins have had, but what they don't see is all the years of struggle and difficult times that they had to endure before their big break. It takes a while in order to get your big break. Even people who are relatively young and achieve huge success, they had to get rejected. They had to learn to hear no. They had to fail a few times first, sometimes epically. One thing that I learned is that no failure is too severe to overcome. I've talked to guests who have been through bankruptcy. I've been, people who've been through divorce, people who lost their business, people who were messed over by business partners and were left holding the bag with thousands and thousands of dollars of debt. But those people resolved that nothing was going to stop them. And it really starts with having a unbreakable why and a huge vision. Napoleon Hill, in his book Think and Grow Rich, talks about having a major definite purpose. You need to know, laser focused, what your major definite purpose in life is. And when you are focused on that and have a bunch of very, very unbreakable, strong reasons why, you will not let anything stop you. You need to realize that your goals are bigger than your current circumstances. Your current circumstances are not permanent at all.
Yeah, and you said it, man. That's the thing, is like the people we look up to and we think, wow, they've achieved so much, they've gone so far, they've done so many cool things, and we just don't see the adversity that they went through. We just don't see when they, were in the beginning stages and they're having all these doubts. Which we all go through doubts, we all go through adversity and stuff. But it's interesting how we tend to see people, on a pedestal almost. It's like, wow, they've achieved so many amazing things. They've done so many great things. That can't be possible for me. When at the end of the day it is. And like you mentioned, Think and Grow Rich, that was one of the books that completely changed my life. I still read it. Like I'm still reading it right now. Because there are just so many successful principles in there. Like you said, principles, they don't change, right? The stories might change, the way it happens might change, but the principles stay the same.
Yeah. And they're regular people. These people that have achieved greatly are regular people. They want to be treated like regular people. I don't think a lot of them want to be hero worshipped. It's almost creepy.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you come at them and say, I want, no, 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 no. You win an audience with people like this by giving first. There's so many people who want to take because they have. It's like, you've got all this success, give some of that to me. Well, no, no, no. You need to earn the right to ask for a sale. You need to earn the right to ask to work with someone. Having a podcast and saying, I can help you share your message. Having a podcast and saying, I've had these 5 people on my show. Jack Canfield even said on the air, you've interviewed a bunch of my friends. And I was able to say, yes, I have. How huge is that? I mean, that's absolutely huge. One thing I would say in terms of achieving success and achieving really anything is you need to level up your game and step up your associations. Jim Rohn says that you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. If you are looking to and lose weight and get an amazing body, you're not going to hang out with 5 fat slobs and expect to get anywhere, because those are the people that are influencing you. You need to get around people who are experts in that. You need to get around people who have a commitment to that. Have accountability partners with people who have what you want. And if your goal is to write a book, which I help people do, get around other people who are interested in sharing with their message in a much, much bigger way. If you want to speak in front of audiences, get around people who have already done that and ask them how they've done it. Now, one thing that you might encounter is if you want to get advice from your mentors, they might help you for free for a little bit, but then they might want you to pay for it. There's nothing wrong with that. You need to honor the years of investment and lessons that they learn to get really good at what they do. And people won't work with you for free for very long. They might be very generous if they really like you and help you out and point you in the right direction, but you need to be willing to invest in yourself. And if you're not interested or committed to excellence, you're not going to commit to working with a coach, and you really, really should.
That's the thing. I've noticed a lot of people, and myself personally, I fall into this trap too, where it's like, I don't want to pay for that book. I don't want to spend the money. And we just want things for free, want the advice for free, want everything for free. But what I've noticed is, one of the things that a lot of these people know, a lot of these successful people are selling books and programs and events and stuff, is they're not only selling it because it's worth that, and they put in the time and the energy and the years of experience that it takes to learn that. But they also know that when people get things for free, they don't value it the way that when they pay for something. Right? When you pay for a new book and you put down $30, $20 on a book, all of a sudden you have an investment into this book, right? You've invested your money, your energy, your time into this program, book, whatever. When something's just given to you for free, we tend to kind of take it for granted. And then the lessons that are in that book that are so important could sometimes just go right over our head because we don't value it the way we could have if we would have invested some of our time, energy, or money into that thing, right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You value more highly something that you invest in, and that's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. Something else I would probably say too is the highly successful people know that they need to be around people with great attitudes. If you are running around with, you're not going to soar like an eagle if you're scratching with the turkeys all the time. You're just not. In fact, Brian Tracy says, if you know 2 negative people, introduce them to each other and run the other way. Brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. So
yeah, totally.
So one of the things that I guess kind of what I'm hearing from you on the show is a lot of these successful people talk about their circle of influence and the people they surround themselves with because of how big of an impact that has on you and the way you see the world. So could you tell us, let's elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I know people, this is the thing for a lot of people, they have family members who might be negative, who might feel like they're dragging them down. They might have friends or coworkers or people who they are surrounding themselves with who aren't necessarily serving them in their goals towards success. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. In terms of family members, for example, there are going to be, it's really difficult to cut someone out of your family, out of your life completely. And you shouldn't really want to. They're expressing their concern out of love. I would say a vast majority of the time, if perhaps family members might be jealous of your success and they want to keep you down to their level because they don't want to feel bad about their lack of achievement in life. And so they try and keep you down so that you don't make them look bad. You just need to be really, really aware. If you are getting the same kinds of feedback from several people, you might want to evaluate whether that's true. Just ask yourself, is this true? Most of the time, if you ask yourself, is this true? The answer is probably going to be no. And doubt does not come from the good. I mean, if you believe in God, and I do, I honestly believe that doubt does not come from God. And so you need to really focus on what your goals are, focus on what you're good at, and forget the rest. And it's not always as easy as it sounds, but having positive influences around you is absolutely important. You can minimize the negative influences around you. You can minimize your contact with negative people around you if you can't completely cut them out, but definitely you want to spend the vast majority of your time around positive influences. This is why I don't watch a lot of TV. I certainly don't watch the news. I don't watch stuff like The View. Please. I just don't waste my time with that. I mean, you can find positive, uplifting things to watch on YouTube. Just Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Brian Tracy. Watch stuff like that. In fact, there's a channel, I think the guy's name is Evan Carmichael, and he does videos, the top 10 rules of success of, and then whoever, Will Smith, Tony Robbins, Simon Cowell, whatever. I've watched some of those. And what he does is he finds audio clips and video clips of different shows and places where they've been interviewed, where they talk about a principle of success, and he just splices 10 of those together. Yeah. And so I subscribe to his channel. Evan Carmichael's the guy's name. Really, really fantastic stuff. But he even says at the end of his videos, if there's a celebrity or someone well-known that you'd like me to do a video about, let me know in the comments and I'll do that. So I'm subscribed to his channel. Prince, top 10 rules of success for Prince. I mean, Beyonce, if that's your taste. Just really amazing stuff. There's all kinds of positive, uplifting things to find on social media and on YouTube if that is your preferred way of getting information.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the beautiful thing about social media is you can decide, you can focus on what you want to talk to. I mean, if you're watching the news, you're at the mercy of whatever they decide to tell you.
Yeah, it's a focus game. What are you going to focus on, right? And that it's crazy how much media affects us. Social media, what you're watching on TV, even the music you listen to. Like, I'm a musician, if you can't tell with all the music stuff around the room. But right. I've noticed, like, even years ago, the music I used to listen to compared to the music that I listen to now, just the feeling, the content of that music has changed, right? Like, for example, I have really difficult time listening to music with negative content. Like, if the person in the song is like complaining or just like being hateful, like a lot of like punk rock. I used to be really into like punk rock and like metal and all that kind of stuff, but like I listen to it now and it drives me insane because I'm like, oh, like negativity, just like get it out of here. And my musical tastes have changed too. I've been really into different music. I'm really into different stuff with a message. And it's really just a matter of what you're focusing on, right, Brian? Because like you said, you could focus on the news and listen to what they're trying to tell you. And even if you're watching the news and you're not listening, it's still affecting your subconscious mind, whether you know it or not. And so that's why you got to be really conscious of what you're focusing on. And I can imagine like yourself having a weekly show where you're interviewing all these successful people. Like, that's going to affect you. That's going to affect the way you see life. That's going to affect the way you think, feel, behave. That's huge. So for our audience, make an effort to surround yourself with more people. Maybe if you're like Brian and you're into speaking or into you could try being a radio host. You could try starting your own podcast. You could try even if you're a writer, you blog, you could write, you could interview people and write blogs about it, right? There's so many ways that you could actually surround yourself with these people. And if you don't know how, go back and listen to earlier in the episode when Brian was telling us, how he went out and found these people and how he went out and got these interviews. So that's great, man. That's great. So we got time, I think, about for one or two more amazing lessons learned from all these interviews. Brian, what else do you think you could share?
Really great question. I think that high achievers have higher standards than everybody else. And that's something that Greg Reed shared on my show. And it sounds obvious, but you'd be amazed at how low a lot of people's standards actually are. And that's not a demeaning statement whatsoever. It's just that if someone's living a very average life, it means they haven't set their standards very high. They're willing to settle for what they have. Well, if you wish that you could make more money, what could you do to make that happen? If you wish that you had a better job, or you wish you had a business, or you wish you had a relationship when you're single, what can you do to make that happen? You don't have to settle for where you're at. Have higher standards than everyone else. You think about it like this. Anyone out there who's ever played sports and had a really demanding coach, or anyone who's been in school and had a really demanding teacher that seemed to make life difficult, wouldn't you say after that experience was done that that person was probably the best coach or best teacher that they ever had? Have you ever had a difficult coach or difficult teacher like that, Bren?
Yeah, for sure. I remember I had a teacher who always was testing my limits, and one of the things he tested my limits on was he always told me I was unorganized. He's like, "You're so unorganized. If you could just get organized, you could get your life together and everything will be all right." And sure enough, I think a couple months later, a year later, I started getting organized, and now I'm one of the most organized, clean freak style people I know, and I love it. It really serves my life. But I didn't like him at the time. At the time, I thought he was
No.
insane. But
And doesn't that just clear your energy up
yeah, yeah, no,
to
it's
be
completely
organized like
changed
that?
everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. So have higher standards than everyone else.
Hmm.
You just There's just no substitute for that. If you are settling or feel very average where you're at, chances are you need to raise your standards. So get around people who have really high standards and observe their life and figure out what it is that they're doing to put them in a place where they are versus where you are. There's absolutely no shame in asking for help. This is the other thing. People who are really successful are not afraid to ask for help. I don't understand when people think that they have to do everything themselves, or they think they have to figure it out. Why reinvent the wheel? Why spend years, literally years, trying to figure out something that somebody else over there has already figured out?
Hmm.
Pay them and find out.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah.
just do it. Everything that you need is available to you.
Hmm.
And I've heard it said that if you are born poor, that's not your fault. But if you die poor, that is your fault.
Hmm.
And I wish
Exactly.
I knew who said that. And I'm not talking about just financial, because I mean, sure, we can talk about money, but you can be rich by having great relationships. You can be rich by having everything that you need around you, food, water, shelter, whatever. You can be rich in the relationships that you have. You can be
Hmm.
rich because you are fulfilled in your career, whether it's at a job or in your business.
Hmm.
If you are not fulfilled, figure it out. I mean, go find someone who has what you have, has what you want, and learn from them. People are so willing to help. You'd be really amazed at how many people are really willing to give you a hand up. I'm not talking about a hand out, but a hand up. They will extend their hand and say, "Here, jump on this pedestal with me, jump on this ledge with me, and I'll show you what I did to make it happen."
Yeah.
There's not a shortage of people out there willing to help. So be willing to ask for help.
That's huge. Actually, we got a question here in the comment section from Andrea who asks, not sure if it was mentioned, but was there one person who kind of jump started you on this journey and made you know for sure that this is what you wanted to do?
That's a really, really great question. I would have to say, let me twist the question a little bit around, because I think a lot of it starts with believing in yourself.
Hmm.
When I was halfway through graduate school, I decided to uh, drop out of graduate school and get a quote unquote real job. I was so burned out. So I started selling insurance, and I did that for about a year. But very early in my insurance career, the guy who was my branch manager, after I gave him my first presentation during training, he said, "That's the best first presentation I've ever heard, ever, ever, ever. You could be really, really good." And that was the first time really that someone, I think, outside of my family really expressed to me how much they believed in me. And you need people like that in your corner.
Hmm.
You need people in your corner who will love and support and believe in you and tell you why they believe in you. That's one reason why I, like you mentioned in the intro, I message you on a very regular basis and let you know that I believe in what you're doing. I support your message. I support your music.
Hmm.
I support your show. My goal is to let you know, Bren, that I believe in what you're doing. It's my superpower. Loving, appreciating, and supporting other people is my superpower. It could be, I could have far worse superpowers than that.
No, it's amazing.
And here's the thing. Really successful people make other people feel comfortable in their presence. In fact, I write about that in my student leadership book. It's called Student Leadership Strategies, 21 Easy Ways to Become a Center of Influence in Your Group. It's my first book. It came out in 2009. It's on Amazon. But one of the 21 things that I wrote about was that excellent leaders make other people feel welcome in their presence. And I hear very few leadership experts talking about that. But it's so important, because if someone feels comfortable with you, won't they be willing to be vulnerable with you? Won't they be willing to trust you more? Wouldn't they be willing to go that extra mile for you? Absolutely. If you go out of your way to not make people feel welcome, then you're creating an atmosphere where people don't want to be around you. And you can't influence someone who doesn't want to be around you. You can't influence someone who doesn't want to listen to you or take you seriously. Make it a point to make people around you feel welcome in your presence, and you will be amazed at how easily you will attract amazing people into your life. So to answer the question a little more directly, the branch manager at the insurance company I worked with really helped me see that I was worthy of what I was doing, and believed in me. And it's been a journey. It's been a constant battle. But even more recently, I'm really owning my awesomeness more than ever before. And 2017 is going to be an amazing year. So that's where it starts, is believing in yourself, believing in the skill set that you've been God-given, and believing in the talents that you have, and then using that to make other people around you more successful as well.
Love it, Brian. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I mean, we've been trying to get this going for a couple weeks now, and I'm glad we finally made it happen. I'd love to have you again on the show sometime in the future, because like I said at the beginning, like I really appreciate you and all that you do, like your superpower of making people feel comfortable, making people feel loved in your presence. Like that is just amazing, man. I appreciate you so much for that. And for coming on the show. And I think our listeners really appreciate it too. Right, listeners? Right, guys? You guys appreciate Brian like I appreciate Brian? Yeah, you do. So anyways.
The correct answer is yes. No, I really appreciate this opportunity, Brennan. And thank you to your listeners for listening. And thank you for being a wonderful host and having this show and this platform to showcase people that you believe are deserving of this opportunity to share with your people. So thank you.
Yeah, huge, Brian. Huge. So definitely, guys, go check out Success Profiles Radio. That's Brian's show. Brian, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and your superpowers?
Yeah, the show site, it points to my show page on the TogiNet Radio Network. So successprofilesradio.com is where you can hear my show. You can also download and subscribe to Success Profiles Radio on iTunes. I would love it if you would, subscribe and leave a great review if you think it's worthy of it. Brent, have you reviewed my show?
I don't think I've reviewed your show, but I think I'm going to have to now.
You're going to have to now.
Yeah.
Thank you. That'd be awesome. And my personal site is briankwright.com. That's BRIAN, the letter K, Wright, WRIGHT, briankwright.com. And you can learn more about everything that I'm doing, including my superpowers, I guess. Boom.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the show. Brian, let's see your peace sign. Brian, get your peace sign in there. Peace, guys. See you.